If you're old enough to remember the worldwide gasps of astonishment when the Mini was launched onto the automotive world in the late 50s, after all it broke countless technological and design barriers in one fell swoop. Well, a similar shockwave went through the automotive industry in Geneva in March 1994, when this concept was unveiled by Ford, called the car. A bizarre, ridiculous concept name that wouldn't of course be used for the real thing. This styling exercise shone out in a sea of mediocrity, vibrant, stylish and different. It was, and after all the excitement died down, we all waited for the inevitable watered-down production version. Then Ford did something amazingly brave, but in the end, totally right. The final vehicle was even more left field than the concept design, and it even kept the name. But when we drove it and fell in love with it, that name wasn't bizarre and silly anymore. This week, the car file opens on the Ford car.
We wanted a vehicle that really signaled a new era of design for Ford, both in terms of exterior design and interior design. We felt it was time for us to establish that era with a physical, visible product. And the design team was given that challenge. And I think when you look at the vehicle, it's quite evident that it's a very fresh, new approach to design for Ford and I think for the automotive industry.
We felt that a smaller car, a lighter car, a more fuel-efficient car would be more appropriate to the social needs of the 1990s and the early next century. Just because you've got a small car doesn't mean you have to have a small car experience, a traditional small car experience. We can confer to a small car some of the attributes of larger cars: safety, quietness, comfort, and so forth.
They say necessity is the mother of invention. The Mini was created after the Suez Crisis forced petrol rationing and created the need for a small economic car. Everyone from the police to posers took to the tiny triumph of engineering. Today, there are different necessities that demand small vehicles. We now have widespread urban congestion and people with lifestyles which demand many shorter car journeys rather than a few long ones. There are more second-car households and families are getting smaller. The prototype of the car was first shown off at the 1994 Geneva show as a concept car. It was so well received that Ford decided to produce it and keep the name.
You can have fun, enjoy driving a car and owning a car with a lot of personality and very high levels of functional integrity. At the same time, the car is environmentally responsible, it's compatible with congested urban situations, and its emissions are lower than any car we've ever produced in mass production in Europe.
Usually the time from concept car to production model creates a watered-down design as conservative executives impress their opinions on each feature. Amazingly, the flair of the original design still survives.
We were free to design the car. There was no replacing an existing vehicle, there was not a facelift, so we have had a very clean sheet of paper in front of us, and we thought that for this new entry, new level, we should design something with a lot of personality, with plenty of elegance, and we find out that by working the sculpture and the graphic, that it was the most appropriate way to do it.
But is the market ready for a vehicle that looks so revolutionary?
Well, ever since the launch of the Mondeo, we've been, right through to the introduction of the most recent Fiesta, we've been concentrating on delivering to the customer very strong performance in certain attributes of the car. They all revolve around things like fun to drive, the driving dynamics of the car, safety, a degree of refinement which in general sets new standards for the class. And the car really is a continuation of the same philosophy.
That's a vehicle that we think will have an image and a reputation that might go on for years and years and years, that people want to buy this car because of what it stands for, rather than just what it is or what it looks like and so forth. This car, it has a lot of substance. Even though it's small in size, this is a car that handles and will surprise people with its dynamics and how much fun it is to drive.
Well, Ford invited Men and Motors to test drive the new baby car for ourselves. So where in the world would they send us? Somewhere that's perfectly designed to test out the capabilities of a new urban car designed to cope with today's traffic jams. Of course, the beautiful holiday environment of Sardinia. But when we got the car to hit the island's tarmac at speed, we realised the reason. This is no urban shoebox on wheels, which is only good for crawling rush hour queues, hunting for parking meters. This is a small car with attitude, and that attitude is eager. Eager to drive and eager to please.
I thought it was a super little car. It actually looks good. It's got a very cute look. It looks as if it should be a very sporty car. And it handles superbly, which makes you think it's the sporty car, but unfortunately it hasn't got the oomph that makes it a sporty car, but it's great, it's brilliant.
We actually believe it's going to create a class of its own. Within the B segment, which is fragmenting, you've got vehicles which are stylish but haven't necessarily got good driving dynamics, and vehicles such as the Fiesta, which are good looking but have also got excellent driving dynamics. We believe this vehicle is going to create its own segment where it's got style and substance.
The headlamp on the bonnet line, not just a rounded form, but a mixture of curved surfaces, very sharp intersections, and very interesting graphics. If you look at the shape of the vehicle, very aerodynamic shape, and take the roof for example. Instead of flattening the roof out, what we've done is follow the aerodynamic teardrop, and actually that increases the headroom for the driver. The width for the driver is the same as Fiesta. So a very spacious environment for the driver. The most challenging part of the development for the engineers, undoubtedly the safety. Inherently challenging task with a small vehicle to bring it up to the safety standard of larger cars. One interesting aspect is the way we've managed the crumple zone. We not only use the engine in front of the area in front of the engine for energy absorption, but we also use the area behind the engine. Normally a lot of vehicles use just the area in front, and therefore that leads to a very long front end.
It's style with substance, and for those people who've actually driven the vehicle, they really do believe it's an outstanding driving performance, and we believe it's actually the best in class.
Now, what else is in the class? Because I can't think of anything else that looks like this. It's so futuristic.
Yeah, that's a very good question. We actually believe it's going to create a class of its own. Within the B segment, which is fragmenting, you've got vehicles which are stylish but haven't necessarily got good driving dynamics, and vehicles such as the Fiesta, which are good looking but have also got excellent driving dynamics. We believe this vehicle is going to create its own segment where it's got style and substance.
From the international launch location in Sardinia, we then flew to Valencia in Spain to look at the manufacturing facilities for the Ford car.
We're reproducing road surfaces that a real vehicle would see, and we're using these to create strains and stresses on the engine mounts of the new vehicle. If we did this at Lommel Proving Ground, it would take over 6 months to reproduce the customer's test cycle. In the laboratory here we can do it in around about 6 weeks, which means it gives us much more opportunity to develop a better engine mount design.
There was a desire to do something a little bit different, a little smaller, lower priced, appealing to a different market segment. It was a great team effort because the team members from engineering and planning and manufacturing and finance and all over the company, purchasing, were very much involved. And we didn't want this to be a new car only. We wanted it to be a new way of developing cars and bringing cars to the marketplace.
After the break, Carfile talks to independent design experts on their thoughts about the car's curves. And we find out who the car really appeals to.
This is the Ford Ka, a car with a personality all of its own. Though you can't help smiling at the bold and witty design touches, has this tiny car got what it takes to make it the style statement of the 90s? It's the result of a fresh approach by Ford stylists, the first example of what they call new edge design. They've named the car Ka, or Ka, spelt K-A, a symbol from ancient mythology, the spirit of life. But has it got the spirit to succeed? Not only is the exterior pretty radical with all its curves and triangles, but the interior design is very different too, with its spherical air vents, circular door panels and bulbous steering wheel. The driving position is pretty comfortable and lots of legroom. Production costs are kept down because there's only the one interior trim colour. There's no question that the car is a design event, so we asked 3 designers to give it some thought.
Now this I like, the soft flowing lines of this dashboard. Safe, womb-like. The dials, indicators, retro-styled, give a sense of familiarity. Coming down to the air vents, typical Dan Dare 50s styling. And then down to the biggest disappointment, the gear lever from a 72 Ford Escort.
The teardrop dash has only 2 dials, a speedometer and a petrol gauge, and even the clock makes a style statement.
Well, this is a nice, curvaceous, pretty little car. Lot of sexiness about it, but it strikes me as a car that was sort of developed during the 80s as a fashion accessory for the 90s. Very much a woman's car, tarted up to be more than it really is. It looks to me sort of still more like a Ford Fiesta, dressed up to be something more special in a Jean-Paul Gaultier jacket.
The polypropylene bumpers wrap all the way around to meet the wheel arches, and with the wheels pushed right into each corner. Although it's 8 inches shorter than the Fiesta, it rivals it for cabin space, and there's a lot more headroom than the taller Cinquecento. And at the back, all the curved panels have allowed Ford to design what they consider to be the light cluster shape of the future. Although the more I look at it, the more I see an Isetta bubble car from the 60s.
I think the car itself is almost bug-like in its appearance. It looks very squat, and it looks almost as though it's about to pounce out at you. The interior is very organic in its sort of form, and I think it's almost got an alien-like quality. I think the car itself for Ford is very radically different, although I think it's going to have a very feminine appeal.
This car is fun to drive as well as to look at. The platform, gearbox, suspension and 1.3 litre engine are all taken from the Fiesta, but substantial revisions mean the car has a feel all of its own. The steering responds with great assurance, and the balance, the grip and the stability are all very good. And with a top speed of 96 miles an hour and a 0 to 60 time of 13.8 seconds, this car is equally at home in the city, on the motorway or in the country. Because it's very small and lightweight, Ford are emphasising the safety features. They've put a strengthening strut behind the instrument panel, high-strength door beams, and the driver's airbag comes as standard. However, if you want the passenger airbag, that's an optional extra.
This is a car all about messages. The message it gives from the front is nose down to the tarmac, let me pass. And the message it gives from the back is little meek smile, thanks very much, that wasn't half bad, was it?
This is a little car with big features that's been in great demand since its launch in October. Ford can't say how many they expect to sell because they, like the rest of us, are waiting to see if we really will take to its amusing idiosyncrasies.
actually, when we first launched the car, it was a very bold, innovative design, but it did generate an awful lot of interest in our showrooms, very quickly in fact. Well, I think when we launched it, most of the interest was generated because of the bold design of the vehicle. It was fundamentally different than anything else available on the marketplace, and still is, in all honesty. Our first customers to buy the KA were very fashion-conscious ladies, in effect still are to a degree, but that customer appeal is now broadened quite considerably, where there's younger people buying the vehicle now, and indeed older people. But again, they are very, very fashion-conscious. More younger people are now buying it, which was the original target market for the vehicle. Well, the best-selling is definitely the KA2, and that's probably in silver, red and black, which are very popular colours on the KA. No, I don't think it'll date quickly, in all honesty. It's the first one of a new breed of vehicles which Ford are bringing out, hence the Puma is new edge design, the Cougar to follow, and I think it's a lot like the Volkswagen Beetle, in all honesty. It's made a fashion statement, and I think it'll live with us for a long time. As second-hand values, I think the KA will be very good indeed, and we've sold several KAs second-hand, and again we've drawn very good money for them.
It's absolutely terrific. You can't deny that Ford have done a superb job of making something that's a real joy to get behind the wheel of. We've still got a couple of quibbles with it. The version you see here is a Car 1, which is the version without power steering. Now, it's first experience we've had of it, and it's a little bit heavy at parking speeds. If you trapped yourself in a space in town, you could be spending many an hour trying to get out. It lightens up very quickly once you're on the move, but if you were wedged into a small space, it could be a bit of a challenge.
And that coming from somebody of your height and weight as well, not being rude there at all, for a small woman it may be quite difficult. How have you found it to drive? I mean, presumably somebody of my height will be quite comfortable in there, but you're a lot taller than me.
Yeah, I don't find it a problem. There's tons of room in there, and I've got a good inch or two over the top of my head, and I'm 6'4", and I think most people will find themselves extremely comfortable. I think the main thing to say about it is that it's such a mature car. There's little vehicles like this where you get on the motorway and you're just plain scared because there's a juggernaut sitting by the side of you and you think, oh my goodness. This thing, you could jump in it, drive all the way to Glasgow and feel perfectly safe and get out perfectly refreshed at the other end. It's marvellous for that.
So it's a lot more than just a little shopping run-around car, do you think?
Oh, it's so much more than that. I think it would be a real injustice, and I think one of the dangers that Ford faces is that it will be viewed as a toy vehicle. It's one of those cute little things that you say "are" at, and it's just not. It's a proper grown-up car, as good as any family saloon.
Price-wise, though, it's actually not that cheap, is it? You could get a Fiesta, one of the new Fiestas, for not much more money. Wouldn't people be better off putting their money into the Fiesta and looking for a bigger parking space, really?
I don't know. I think Ford were a little bit disappointed themselves. I suspect in the back rooms there, they expected to launch it at about £6,000, and it's ended up at, well, this version is £7,800 on the road. Now, for that, or a little bit more, you could end up with a base level Fiesta, which is a more mature vehicle, still in my view. So I do think they had a little bit of a pricing problem. That said, Ford is saying that the first people going into the showrooms to buy this are putting every conceivable extra on it and leaving the showroom with a vehicle costing the best part of £10,500. So that seems to be going against that theory.
I think the thing to bear in mind is that every season you dash out to the shops and you buy whatever outfit you want in the latest colour, and next winter you look at it and go, oh no, oh that's not quite the style, oh I don't want flares anymore. So maybe there's something to be learnt from that.
Exactly. But one thing I think has got to be said, and that is that Ford have got to take some credit for doing something brave. We sat there watching Ford 5 years ago produce some of the most appalling vehicles any of us had ever seen. They're now producing little cars like this, which are absolutely fantastic when it comes down to it, and I think they've got to take some credit.
When a vehicle looks this visually stunning, it means that the driving experience has an awful lot to live up to. But the car does perform magnificently. The gear change is easy and precise, the clutch is extremely light, and it's got superb brakes. My only really big criticism, though, on this model in particular is the steering. It is so heavy. It feels like it belongs to a car that's much weightier, much larger, and much more cumbersome.
I think it's very neat. It depends on your taste, really. I mean, let's have a look at some of the details that are around in the cabin. This radio on the basic version of the Car 1, is actually a neater bit of design than on the more expensive version. I love the little rounded dial here, and you get the display of the stations coming up in there, and the presets are set in a nice arc, and actually it's much better looking and more inventive than on the more expensive version. Most of the controls, again proving that the vehicle isn't a toy, fall nicely to hand, as the old cliche goes, and everything is well thought out. The function matches the form. There's one little bit though that I'd like to quibble. I'm certain in the showroom people will be shown the very clever glove box over here, which is supposed to double up as a cassette holder and also holding your sunglasses as well, or whatever else you choose to put in there. Now, I found over a weekend with the vehicle that what I ended up doing was climbing into the car, and whatever I had with me I'd throw into there. Of course, what you end up doing is just scooping everything out of there every time you want to use what's inside. So it's not quite thought out properly. Very clever, and I'm certain people will go ooh when they see it in the showroom, but it doesn't quite do it for me.
Practically it doesn't. And also, can I just ask what this is? There's this strange little sign that says no bottles. Now, I'm sorry, but I've never seen a bottle that would fit into there, so the designers of this car obviously live in Lilliput, I think.
Well, it's strange, isn't it? Maybe it matches up with the size of the vehicle. You have these tiny, ickle little bottles that you pop in there, and presumably they're not supposed to put them in there because they'll come flying out at you if you break hard or something, I don't know.
The Ford car, well, it's certainly a car that makes a huge style statement, and it handles well. It's a fun car to drive around town, apart from that terribly heavy steering. But the best thing about it, well, it's a car that people want to talk about it. They stop you in the street to ask about it, they smile as you drive by, and you know, that means Ford must be doing something right.